In the past couple of days, Tesla has pulled a rabbit out of the hat, showing they're now autonomously driving their vehicles from the Fremont factory to the parking lot, about a 1.2-mile trip, all completely autonomously. But the most important part is actually a very brief reply from Ashok Elaswamy, head of Tesla's AI. So let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. First of all, sorry about the cold. I'm dealing with it. Got a doctor's appointment this afternoon. I've got a nasty cough going with it, so my voice is a little bit, it's radio voice today. Get the extra deep stuff. Also, a huge thank you to all the birthday wishes. I really love them all. Thank you all for, sending them out on YouTube, on X, and my wife, Misinformation, actually put together a lovely video of everybody sending birthday wishes to me, and a lot of the Tesla X community was there sending out wishes, so thank you all so much for that. I really do appreciate it. But now, on with the show. On January 28th at 11:25 p.m., so you'll forgive me, I was busy. It was my birthday yesterday. It was a busy day, so I wasn't able to work on this yesterday, but look at this. We have Teslas autonomously driving themselves, and as you can see on the bottom one, it says approximately 1.2-mile route to the Fremont factory, and you might think to yourself, okay, why is this a big deal? Well, it's a big deal. I ran really rough calculations in my head. If you have 5,000 cars a week that you're producing, you need about 25 to 30 employees devoted full time just to driving vehicles, because they have to drive the vehicle. Let's say it takes them 5 minutes plus, because you can see how slow it is, right? There's a lot of vehicles in a row. It's not like it's going fast, but you have to drive it, you have to park it, then you have to go find a bus, you have to wait on the bus, have to take the bus back, have to pick up the next car. So 15 to 20 minutes per round trip. It basically equates with bus drivers and people doing the driving, to get the cars from the factory out to the parking lot. You're looking at somewhere around 25 to 30 employees to do that. So this is not an insignificant number of employees doing this stuff. And we can take a look at this other video here that's inside the vehicle, and you can see how it comes out. It actually makes a stop. It's 3x speed. I was going to say this thing looks like it's going very, very quickly. I just noticed that 3x down at the bottom. But anyway, you can see that the vehicle is perfectly happy to drive itself. And it's, okay, so this is 2 minutes at 3x speed. So you're looking at about a 6-minute trip, right? So that's exactly what I was talking about in terms of the amount of time that it would take. This is not something you can do trivially, and it requires quite a few employees to do this. So yeah, there is some cost savings involved, but this is just the first step. This is at the Fremont factory, obviously. But the cool part here, of course, is the fact that Tesla is able to do this completely autonomously with a fleet of vehicles. These vehicles are just coming out constantly, and they're able to go and park themselves autonomously because this is private land. And in the Giga Texas factory, of course, they've got the tunnel that they're building. I don't know if that's complete yet or not, but that will take them under the highway and everything over to the parking lot. So as long as this is private, they don't have to get permission from California or Texas or wherever to drive these vehicles because they're in a private area. But you can see that the vehicles are perfectly capable of driving themselves from point A to point B and then autonomously park themselves. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here, and you can see there's actually, there's quite a few interesting little wrinkles to this. They've got barriers up. It's a very, very thin little area here, and I wanted to get to the parking area. Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure how they dictate how the vehicle parks itself. I don't know if they have a go to slot 27A or something like that, but clearly it's able to go and maybe it just finds an open parking spot and it parks itself there. But very, very cool what they're able to do here. And of course, this is a big flex. This is something other vehicle manufacturers can't even dream of doing. And a vehicle like a Cruise or Waymo or something like that can't possibly do this. Now, this raises a very interesting question asked by Joey. Don't the cameras need to be calibrated first? If you have ever owned a Tesla before, you pick it up, or traditionally you have picked it up at the showroom or something, and maybe it has 3 or 4 miles on it, right? Because it got driven to the parking lot, and that's all that it got driven. And then you get in the car and you don't get to use full self-driving right away. They're like, drive it 20, 30 plus miles, something like that. And the camera and the vehicle and everything calibrates itself over that time, and then you're able to drive it autonomously. So how the heck do they do this? How do they drive it straight out of the factory? They're building it. They're literally putting stuff onto it, looking at it under lights and saying like, yeah, this is good to go. And then it's going out and autonomously driving. How is that possible? Well, this is the brief reply Ashok had. A calibration is now done automatically as the vehicle moves through the manufacturing line. That is is pretty remarkable stuff there. What that means is that far from having to put the car together and drive it on a road for 20 or 30 miles to calibrate the cameras, remember everything, the cameras shift around a little bit. The optics are not exact between one camera and the next. The software and the hardware and everything have to calibrate themselves and understand what this vehicle is, this individual vehicle, as opposed to every other one. And of course, the differences are very slight, but it still has to do that calibration. So this traditionally required you driving it around in city streets and stuff, right? It has to be able to take this information in and train itself. Now, apparently, it can be done while the car is being built. In other words, as you're putting the pieces on the car, it's actually turning on the cameras, it's looking around, it's saying like, what is my environment? How big is this car? What is the, the spherical distortion, the barrel distortion, things like that of this particular lens? What are the exact color profiles of this particular lens? And it does that for all of the cameras around the vehicle, and then it's able to just drive off the lot on its own. This is a huge, huge step. This is something that I would not have thought was possible because you're looking at a factory line. You're not looking at out on the road. You're looking at a completely different environment. And yet it's still able to calibrate itself based on that interior space going down the factory line. I don't know if they've put, maybe some signs up or something like QR codes or I don't know, some bars or something so it can actually see them as it goes down the line, and it can use that to optically calibrate itself. But however they're doing this is a really remarkable step. So as I said in my reply, that's pretty stunning. I guess Optimus will do the same thing someday. And that was the other thing I immediately thought of. It's like, well, if you're training this thing as it's being built, you could easily do that with the Optimus robot as well. And actually, in a way, that would be easier with Optimus because Optimus you might designate it to live in a factory or in an interior space. So as opposed to a car which lives in an exterior space, it drives around on roads and things like that, where the calibration has to make a fairly substantial jump between being inside in a factory and outside on roads and everything. That's a significant jump. For Optimus, it's actually significantly less complicated because Optimus will be indoors probably at the beginning. I mean, obviously, once it's calibrated and once it knows what it's doing, it can go outside as well. But at least at the beginning, you pull this thing off the line and it should be able to just stand up and walk over to wherever it needs to go, including for the early models that they could just go to work in the factory immediately. It's like literally they could come off the line, the last part gets slapped on, they walk to the front of the line and start building things, right? They could start doing this stuff immediately. So eventually it would be like this sort of like virtuous cycle where you'd have robots building robots, then those robots going around back to the beginning of the line and building the robots, and building the robots would get faster and faster and faster. So you could see the Optimus ramp going relatively quickly, assuming all of the parts and materials and all of that stuff are available in these kinds of quantities, that it could build one, that could then go on the line and start building the next one, and then that could go on the line and start building the next one. And before long, you have, a lot of Optimi that are there building the next Optimi. And because they're able to calibrate so quickly, you don't have to waste time calibrating them, which takes human hours because, of course, the humans have to do something with these robots. But also that means that the robots, the Optimi, would not be able to walk at the beginning because they wouldn't be calibrated. So they'd have to be put on some sort of a stand or something like that and moved around or something to do all this calibration. Whereas if they can come off the line, if they can calibrate themselves while they're being built, they should be able to walk straight off the end of the line. In other words, once the last piece is put on and they're checked out, they can just start walking. So there's no wasted time and wasted effort at the beginning of this process. So of course, in the near term, this is very exciting for Tesla vehicles. We're going to see this, I'm sure, in Giga Texas very soon. But the fact that they can autonomously drive themselves out of the factory and over to their own parking places without any human intervention is absolutely huge. Yeah, it's going to save some labor because people won't have to be there to do that work, and that will save some employees that can go do something more beneficial, right? It's not a particularly great job to just drive a car from place to place. I would imagine it's much more fulfilling to actually help build something rather than just drive cars back and forth. But in the long term, this is even more exciting for Optimus. I'm very excited to see how quickly Optimus can be built because of the fact that it should be able to be auto-calibrated as it's being built. All right, folks, so what do you think about all of this? Let me know in the comments while you're down there. If you don't mind liking and subscribing, if you could subscribe, that would certainly help out the channel. I still would love to get to 100,000 subscribers one of these days, and thank you so much to everybody who did subscribe over the last month. You got me a lot closer to 100,000, so thank you all so much, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.